Facebook, the social network that literally 1 billion people in the world use regularly, has brought in an official censorship program that explicitly targets right-wing content. Ironically, they made this announcement in Germany. That's the thing about social justice warriors today. They are so historically illiterate. They miss the irony of announcing curbs to civil liberties while standing in Berlin, speaking in German. The weird thing is that the announcement this time is being made by Jews. Sheryl Sandberg, Facebook's chief operating officer, at the direct instruction of Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook's chief executive. No flicker of discomfort from these liberal Jews banning political thoughts in Germany, just clueless about history, eh? Here, some quick background. As I've told you before, back in December, in the aftermath of the massive Muslim terrorist attacks in Paris in November, and as young Muslim migrants were sweeping across Europe by the million and bringing Islamic rape culture with them, Mark Zuckerberg declared that the problem wasn't terrorism or Sharia culture, but people who criticize those things. Here, let me read the whole statement from him verbatim. He made this as a Facebook status post, of course. Here it is. He said, "I want to add my voice in support of Muslims in our community and around the world. After the Paris attacks and hate this week, I can only imagine the fear Muslims feel that they will be persecuted for the actions of others. As a Jew, my parents taught me that we must stand up against attacks on all communities. Even if an attack isn't against you today, in time, attacks on freedom for anyone will hurt everyone. If you're a Muslim in this community, as the leader of Facebook, I want you to know that you are always welcome here and that we will fight to protect your rights and create a peaceful and safe environment for you. Having a child has given us so much hope, but the hate of some can make it easy to succumb to cynicism. We must not lose hope. As long as we stand together and see the world and the good in each other, we can build a better world for all people." That's Mark Zuckerberg. My first observation is how weird it is to remark so briefly on the terrorist attacks and then immediately, in the same sentence, say he was thinking about how afraid Muslims must be. 500 French infidels were just attacked by Muslims in the name of Islam by something called the Islamic State, but Zuckerberg's first thoughts turned to the fear Muslims must have? That's odd. He invoked his Judaism for a reason I'm not quite sure, but then he started talking about attacks on, quote, all communities. Have there been a lot of attacks on Muslim communities? A lot of Christian or Jewish or Hindu terrorists attacking Muslims that I just haven't heard about? What bugs me the most, though, is that Zuckerberg used exactly the same word to describe what happened in Paris as what he imagines is happening to Muslims. He used the same word, attacks. So what happened to the 500 people shot in the Paris attacks was just an attack, and Muslims are being attacked for those attacks. He chose the same word. Think about that. It's like describing a bank robber and the policeman who chases him as both shooters, the same thing. But the money quote was his promise to create a peaceful and safe environment for you. Of course, Facebook is just the internet. It's in cyberspace. It's not a real place. So peaceful and safe doesn't refer to actual war or violence. It means political discomfort. Zuckerberg used pretty transparent code for, we're going to block words and images that would hurt your feelings, but only hurt Muslim feelings. That's who he was writing about. Now, that was December, but it's a month later, and it brings us to the Berlin announcement. There she is, Sheryl Sandberg, the billionaire chief operating officer of Facebook. She's in red, flanked by German government authorities and left-wing NGOs, announcing something called the Online Civil Courage Initiative and kicking in €1 million from Facebook. So what does this mean? Well, like I say, it was literally announced in German, which is classic. But throw it through the Google translator machine and you can follow it pretty easily enough. Online civil courage is a bit vague, but the headline of the press release adds the phrase, for use against online extremism. And in the first paragraph of the press release, it says, quote, combating extremism and hate speech on the internet. Okay. Now, when I think of online extremism, I think of how the Islamic State terrorists use social media so powerfully to recruit terrorists from the West, to communicate with each other secretly, and of course to promote their propaganda, which is not just the hard feelings of hate, but actually murdering people. But that's not what Facebook is talking about. That's actually the opposite of what they're talking about. As Zuckerberg signaled last month, the problem he cares about is not Muslim terrorist attacks. It's the, quote, attacks in response to terrorism. People having hard feelings in response. Okay, so what's Facebook going to do? What's this civil courage thing? Well, here's the next part of the press release. Quote, the initiative will bring together experts from the field of combating violent extremism to develop best practice examples, which are then provided to NGOs, governments, and other online services available. In addition, tools are being developed by means of which people can get involved in the field of counter-speech itself. Oh, okay, counter-speech. I think I know what that means. It's sort of what we do here. We speak out against things. If someone says something bad, you counter it with something better, a debate, a clash of ideas, freedom. So fight falsehoods with truth. I get it. I'm not sure how Facebook or any central authority, especially one specifically including government officials, should or can get involved with, what or how people can or should say. But I'll play along because they did mention violent extremism, so maybe that's their code for terrorism? Or given that this announcement was in Germany, maybe they mean the mass swarming sexual assaults by Muslim migrants that Germany experienced on New Year's Eve. Maybe it's that. Okay, hold that thought for a moment, because then Sandberg is quoted in the German press release, and tell me if you can even make sense of this. Ready? Here's what she said, quote, hate speech has no place in our society, not even on the internet. Facebook is not a place for the dissemination of hate speech or incitement to violence. With this new initiative, we can better understand the challenges of extremist statements on the internet and better respond to it. Together, we can ensure that the voices of peace, of truth, and tolerance will be heard. The best cure for bad ideas are good ideas. The best remedy for hate is tolerance. Counter-speech, capital letters, is incredibly strong, and it takes time, energy, and courage. Okay, well, hang on. Which is it? See, there are different philosophies there. Will bad ideas be countered with good ideas? Or will bad ideas just be censored? That's different. Is the best remedy for hate, is it to show tolerance? Well, does that include tolerance for bad ideas or people we disagree with? Didn't she just say she wouldn't tolerate hateful comments? There's no place for them on the internet? And where does the courage part come in? Well, Peter Newman, a professor, tried to handle the tough parts. He was quoted in the press release too. He said, quote, virtually all experts are agreed that to remove content at best represents a part of the solution to the problem of online extremism and hate speech. Oh, so it is about removing bad speech. Didn't Sandberg just say the best answer was to respond with courageous truth? But then Newman says this, quote, equally important are the support of counter-speech, again, capital C, capital S, the promotion of grassroots movements that fight extremist views, unquote. Oh, okay, I think I'm starting to get it now. Ideas that Facebook doesn't like will be deleted, but that's only part of the solution. Facebook will promote ideas it does like. So by counter-speech, capital C, capital S, they really mean a one-way conversation from Facebook to you. Doesn't sound like freedom or a debate. But I guess when it's a war and you're dealing with terrorists in the Islamic State, it's best not to accord them our Western luxuries of freedom. Didn't Facebook mention violence several times? Well, next up was Sasha Havlicek from another left-wing NGO. Here's what she said, quote, together we can find an appropriate response to the increasingly sophisticated online strategies of extremists. Our mission to initiate this forum is to support credible voices against hate in an informed and strategic manner and to encourage, because they represent the overwhelming majority of people. Okay, so again, encouraging and promoting ideas that Facebook likes against extremists. Extremists, eh? This is who I think about when I think of extremists. Islamic State terrorists. Or maybe it's the mass sexual assault in Cologne, Germany. Or maybe it's the terrorists who attacked Charlie Hebdo in Paris, or a few months later shot up 500 people. Or maybe it's just these people on the street pushing Sharia law. That's what I think of when I think extremism in Europe. But no. See, that's my point. That is not the enemy in the eyes of Sandberg and Zuckerberg and the German government and these well-paid left-wing NGOs. The enemy, the extremists, the haters, the violent ones that they're talking about are precisely the opposite. I mean, didn't you listen to Zuckerberg's Facebook post? Here, they saved the worst for last in their official press release. Here's Annette Kahane, another Jewish censor, letting out her inner fascist in German language in Berlin. She said, and I quote, "This is necessary because right-wing extremism, racism, and anti-Semitism are present in all walks of life in Germany," unquote. Oh, it's right-wing extremism? Right-wing racism, right-wing anti-Semitism. Is that a fact? Is that who's going around terrorizing everybody in Europe these days? Nazis, maybe. Really? Was it 1,000 white pride skinheads in Cologne, Germany, who did that mass sexual assault on New Year's Eve? What planet are you on if that is your reality? Well, she continued. Here's from the press release again. Sanctions against hate speech alone is not enough. It is more necessary than ever here to develop tools and strategies that can be a successful weapon against hate, the counter speech, again, capital C, capital S. So not only does she want censorship, she wants sanctions, presumably legal sanctions like prosecutions, against right-wingers, again, counter speech. That's the new code word for officially approved left-wing voices. Okay, last quote from her. She says, "Bring laws to advantage to operate a responsible company policy and to establish new forms of speech. Education and culture belong together." So Facebook, built on Western values of freedom of speech and freedom of association, but not anymore. Now it's about new ideas like responsible speech, new forms of speech, changing the entire culture to ideas that fit with their view, or as Google's executive chairman put it in the New York Times, spell checkers, but for hate and harassment. So as you're typing a crime thought, a crime think, Facebook will edit you, it will delete you, and maybe you'll find a lot more good think served up in your Facebook news feed. Very Orwellian, no more bad think, only good think. Are you worried about Muslim rape sprees in your city in Germany? If you try and type about it, Facebook will block you. But now you've identified yourself to Facebook, so you'll get the good think now. You'll get the counter speech countering you. Facebook knows more about you than any human being does. It probably knows more about you than you know because it doesn't forget anything. Facebook knows what you proactively tell it, but it also knows what you look at on the computer, what you search for, what you read. It has the biggest database about you in the world. And now it's teamed up with the German government to censor bad thoughts and promote good thoughts, counter thoughts. Not to censor the Islamic State, but to censor, you heard them, right-wing extremists, which they define as people who disagree with them. You know, in science fiction, Skynet, that's that sci-fi moment when the machines become self-aware and destroy humanity. That's from the movie The Terminator. Well, it's not machines against people. It's political elites using the power that the internet gives them over the little people. Those political elites, humans, deciding to remake the world in their image. Not through some explosive sci-fi war, but by changing what we can know about the world, by censoring it, and what we can say back to the world by spell checking our ideas, which eventually spell checks our thoughts. That's far more scary to me than any blockbuster Hollywood has ever dreamed up.